They all laughed, not just a chuckle. Not the polite kind you offer when someone tries to be funny. No, this was full-bodied laughter, loud. Echoing off the walls of my mother's dining room, it rang in my ears like a cruel joke that I was the punchline of, and somehow everyone else was in on it. I sat there, still holding the box in my lap, a dainty floral print, probably from a gift shop. Inside were napkins. Fancy ones, sure, but napkins. My fingers ran over the soft paper, the delicate embroidered edge, and then I heard her voice. "You clean up after everyone anyway," my mom said, grinning like it was the most hilarious thing she'd ever said. And everyone, my sister Talia, my Uncle Dean, even my usually stoic Grandpa Frank, burst into laughter. I felt the heat creep up my neck. My throat tightened. I tried to swallow, but the lump in my chest wouldn't budge. My jaw clenched so tightly I could hear the faint click in my ears. Still, I didn't say anything. I couldn't. I just stared down at those napkins, feeling the weight of years crash down on me all at once. Talia sat across the table, proudly wearing Grandma's gold watch, the same one I used to admire as a little girl, standing at her vanity while she told stories of the old country. It glimmered on my sister's wrist, like it had always belonged there. I could barely meet her eyes. Was this really happening? I kept my expression blank, but inside I was spiraling. Why did this hurt so much? Why did it always feel like I was the outsider in my own family? I tried to breathe evenly, but my chest felt tight. My hands trembled slightly as I rested them in my lap, forcing them to stay still. They moved on like it was nothing. Uncle Dean cracked a joke about me getting matching gloves next year, and Talia tossed her hair back, flashing that polished smile. I saw the flicker of smugness in her eyes, the way she looked at me. Not with love or even pity, but something worse. Dismissal. I've always been the one who clears the plates, the one who shows up early to help prep the food, the one who checks in on Grandpa when no one else does, the one who remembers birthdays, who listens, who makes the effort. I never asked for a parade, just recognition, a moment, something. But today I got napkins and a joke. Their laughter had started to fade, but in its place was something worse, awkward silence. I think they noticed I hadn't joined in. I could feel their eyes starting to shift, the energy around the table turning just slightly. Tension slipping into the air like smoke. That's when I knew. I couldn't let this slide. Not this time. So I reached into my bag. My hands were steady now, surprisingly, and I pulled out the envelope. Manila. Slightly bent at the corner from being in my coat pocket. The room quieted as I laid it gently on the table in front of me. No words, just the sound of Grandpa's old clock ticking on the wall behind me. I looked up. Mom's smile froze. Talia leaned forward slightly, curiosity twitching at her brow. Uncle Dean looked like he was trying to calculate whether this was another joke. It wasn't. I met each of their gazes one by one and said calmly, "I brought something too." And just like that, the laughter stopped. After. The room felt colder after that. Or maybe it was just me. Maybe I'd finally stopped pretending I didn't feel the chill every time I was reminded I didn't really belong. Not fully, not like Talia did. But before I tell you what was in that envelope, you need to understand how we got there. I'm Lena. I'm 28, the youngest daughter, the quiet one, the one who, according to my family, never caused any trouble, which is code for I kept my mouth shut. I smiled through the passive comments. I handled the messes, literally and emotionally. We were raised in a house where Talia was the storm and I was the cleanup crew. Talia has always been radiant, confident. She made straight A's, got scholarships, started her own business, and somehow always had time to update Mom on every single accomplishment. It's not that I didn't do well. I have a good job. I work in nonprofit accounting. I bought my own little condo last year, but nothing I did ever sparkled quite the same way. When I got promoted, Mom sent a thumbs-up emoji. When Talia made a podcast guest appearance, there was a full-on family brunch. It became a pattern, a painful, exhausting one I got used to, until I almost forgot it should feel different. This dinner, it was supposed to be Talia's birthday weekend celebration, a small family thing. Mom insisted on hosting at her house, the same one we grew up in, same creaky floors, same chipped plates, same familiar tension under all the smiles. When I arrived, I was greeted with the usual: a half hug from Mom, a distracted wave from Talia, and Grandpa Frank patting the seat next to him. He's never been loud or overly affectionate, but we've always had an unspoken bond. I think he saw through the noise, saw me, even if he never said much. As his health declined over the past year, I was the one who took him to doctor's appointments, managed his medications, and made sure he got to spend time at the park, his favorite place. No one really asked how that was going. They just said, "Thanks, Lena," like it was a favor, not family. That night, I helped set the table, of course, arranged the candles, brought over wine I knew Mom liked, even though she never mentioned if she appreciated it. I even baked Talia's favorite cake, lemon with raspberry filling. And no one noticed that I brought it in a box because I had to rush from the office, still wearing my work blazer. It was like being cast in a role I never auditioned for. The helper, the quiet one, the one who always has her hair pulled back and her sleeves rolled up. And when Mom handed Talia the gold watch, our grandmother's watch, the one she used to let me try on while brushing my hair in her bedroom, I knew exactly what was happening. Talia laughed, wrapping it around her wrist like it belonged there. And I held a box of napkins, feeling like a background character in my own story. But that envelope was the first time I ever stepped out of the script they'd written for me. I'd been holding onto it for weeks, unsure when or if I'd ever use it. But something in that moment cracked, not out of spite, out of truth, out of finally realizing that no one was going to acknowledge me unless I forced them to look. And so I placed it on the table. Because that night wasn't just a birthday dinner, it was a reckoning. They didn't open the envelope right away. I think part of them assumed it was just another Lena thing, some polite gesture or overly practical paperwork, maybe even another joke. But I wasn't smiling. I hadn't been since the napkin box landed in my lap. Mom glanced at it, then at me. Her lips parted slightly, like she was about to say something but changed her mind. Talia raised an eyebrow, twirling the gold watch on her wrist, and muttered, "Okay, dramatic." Uncle Dean laughed again, the kind of chuckle people use when they're uncomfortable but trying to play it cool. I didn't respond. I just sat there, hands folded in my lap, steady and silent. They didn't know what I knew. They didn't know what I had done. Let me take you back a few months. It was a rainy Tuesday, the kind where the sky stays gray all day and everything feels heavier. I had taken Grandpa Frank to his doctor's appointment. He was quieter than usual on the drive, his hands folded on his lap, staring out the window. When we got to the parking lot, he turned to me and said, "You know I trust you, right?" His voice was rough with age, but still clear. I nodded, confused. "Of course, Grandpa." He exhaled slowly and looked straight ahead. "I want to change my will." At first, I thought I misunderstood. I asked him why. He said, "Because I've watched how this family treats you. And I've watched how you treat this family, and only one of those things deserves to be remembered." That hit me like a gut punch, so I helped him. I took time off work, found an estate attorney, drove Grandpa to every appointment, made sure it was all legal, all notarized, all quiet. He left most of his remaining savings to me, modest but meaningful, but the part that would sting them the most? He left me the house we were currently sitting in, the house they all assumed would either go to Mom or be sold and split, the house I used to sneak cookies in as a kid, curl up with Grandpa on stormy nights, and later clean when no one else would. They had no idea. I didn't tell them because I wasn't sure I ever would. I didn't want to feel like I had to win something to matter. But tonight, the napkins, the laughing, something about it made my heart harden in a way it hadn't before. It wasn't just the gift, it was the message. You're the servant. You're the afterthought. I sat at that table, blinking slowly, replaying everything. Every birthday where Talia got something thoughtful and I got socks. Every time I helped Mom with a crisis and she told Talia how strong she was. Every time Grandpa needed something and I was the one who showed up. Not because anyone asked me to, but because I couldn't bear to see him forgotten the way they so often forgot me. The injustice swelled in my chest like rising water, so I said it, clear and calm. I brought something too. And now they were staring. No one touched their wine. No one reached for dessert. Just silence. Talia looked uncomfortable for the first time all evening, Mom's brow furrowed. Uncle Dean shifted in his chair. They knew it wasn't just napkins. And that's when I realized this wasn't about revenge. It was about visibility, about finally speaking in a room where I'd been invisible for too long. They had laughed at me, but they wouldn't be laughing much longer. My fingers tapped the edge of the envelope as the silence stretched across the table like fog. I wasn't rushing this moment. For once, I wanted them to feel the weight of not knowing, to sit in the uncertainty I had lived in for years, wondering how I fit in, questioning my worth, waiting for someone to notice. Mom cleared her throat. "Lena, what is this?" Her voice was softer now, less amused, more cautious. I think she knew, on some level, that whatever this was, it mattered. I looked at her, not with anger, not anymore, just clarity. "It's from Grandpa," I said quietly. "Something he asked me to take care of a few months ago." Talia scoffed. "Oh, please, what, his grocery list?" I didn't flinch. I didn't need to. That kind of defensiveness doesn't come from confidence. It comes from fear. And deep down, she knew it too. Grandpa shifted in his seat. He hadn't spoken much all night, but now he raised his head and looked at Mom. Then Talia. Then me. "She helped me with everything," he said simply. His voice cracked a little. "When I couldn't drive, when I couldn't think straight, when I didn't want to admit I was scared." His words lingered in the air, settling over the table like a blanket we hadn't asked for. Uncle Dean scratched the back of his neck. "So, what, this is some medical stuff?" I almost laughed, not out of humor, but from the absurdity of how deep their denial ran. "No," I said, "it's legal. It's the updated will." That hit like thunder. Talia's mouth fell open slightly. Mom leaned back in her chair, blinking rapidly. Uncle Dean stopped chewing whatever was still in his mouth. "You changed his will?" Talia asked, her voice tight and high. "No," I corrected. "Grandpa changed it. I helped him do it properly because he asked me to." I reached for the envelope and opened it, sliding the papers across the table toward them. I had highlighted the key points, Grandpa's wishes, the signatures, the witness statements. There was nothing shady, nothing sneaky, just truth. Finally on paper, the house, Grandpa's remaining accounts, personal letters, instructions for his care, even a note explaining why he made the changes. I had no idea if they'd actually read it, but I needed them to see it. Mom stared down at the documents like they were in a different language. Her face had gone pale, lips pressed tightly together. I didn't know he was thinking about this," she whispered. "That's because no one asked," I said, quieter than I meant to, but the words still cut through the room. No one really saw him, or me. It wasn't anger that filled me anymore. It was something deeper, a kind of grieving, not for what was lost, but for everything that had never been there to begin with. The approval I kept chasing, the affection I thought I had to earn. That night, I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cry. I didn't beg to be understood. I simply told the truth. "I never wanted the house," I said. "I wanted to be treated like I mattered." Talia leaned back in her chair, arms crossed, eyes narrowed. "So this is your way of getting back at us?" I looked at her. Really looked at her. This is my way of stepping out of the shadow you all were perfectly fine leaving me in." And with that, I stood up. I didn't need to stay for their reactions. Not right away. I'd said what needed to be said. I had taken the one thing no one ever gave me, space. And in that moment, for the first time in my life, I felt like the most powerful person in the room. I didn't storm out. That would have been too easy, too loud, too dramatic. I just stepped back from the table and let the silence do what my voice never could, force them to feel something. But I didn't leave. I stood near the doorway, hands lightly folded, watching as they slowly, almost reluctantly, leaned over the papers I had just placed in front of them. Grandpa's signature was there, clear and deliberate. Witnessed, dated. The revised will left no room for question. Talia was the first to speak. This can't be real." Her voice was trembling now, a crack in the polished surface she wore like armor. "Why would he leave you the house and everything else? What about Mom? What about me?" I could feel my heartbeat slow. It wasn't joy. It wasn't revenge. It was just stillness, a calm I hadn't felt in years. Grandpa looked up. Because she earned it. The room froze. I've seen how Lena shows up, he continued, his voice steadier now, even with the weight behind it. She didn't wait for someone to ask her to care. She just did. She never asked for recognition. But that doesn't mean she didn't deserve it. Mom opened her mouth, but no words came. She stared at the table, jaw tight, hands clasped like she was bracing for something. I'm not saying you're not my daughter, Mira, Grandpa added, looking at my mother. But Lena was there when it counted. Every hospital visit, every form I couldn't understand, every meal I couldn't cook. You all sent flowers. She showed up. The truth of his words hit harder than anything I could have said. I turned toward Mom, but she wouldn't look at me. I searched her face for anything, guilt, regret, even surprise, but all I found was the blank expression of someone being forced to confront a truth they had spent years ignoring. Talia, on the other hand, was unraveling. Her eyes were glassy, her fingers clenched tightly around her wine glass like it was anchoring her to reality. You didn't tell anyone, she snapped. You just let us sit here like fools. I met her gaze. I let you treat me how you've always treated me. This time, the only difference is there's something on paper to show for it. Uncle Dean mumbled, Well, damn. He looked almost impressed, if not mildly horrified. He leaned back, rubbing his jaw. Guess you were always the quiet one, huh? I let that sit for a second. Then I said, Not anymore. No one laughed. I looked at the dining table, still half covered in dishes and crumbs from the cake I'd made. The napkin box sat untouched beside my plate. For a fleeting moment, I wanted to leave it there, let it rot in symbolism, but instead I picked it up, held it like it meant something. Then I turned to my mom. I'm not angry anymore, I said. I'm just done asking for what should have been given freely. Her eyes finally met mine, just for a moment, and in that moment, I saw it. Not understanding, not an apology, but something close. Recognition. That was enough. I walked toward the door, the napkin box tucked under my arm like a trophy for surviving their indifference. Behind me, Grandpa called out, You'll stay in touch, won't you? I smiled. Always. And I meant it. For him, I always would. But for the rest of them? This was the day they finally learned. The quiet ones aren't weak. Sometimes we're just waiting for the right moment to speak loud enough that no one ever forgets. The next morning, the house was quiet. Not just the kind of quiet that settles in after a family gathering, but the kind that feels intentional, heavy, thoughtful. I stayed in the guest room that night, not because I had to, but because Grandpa asked. He didn't want to say goodbye just yet, and neither did I. I woke up early, as I always do, made coffee, and sat on the back porch where Grandma used to keep her plants. Most of them had withered from neglect. I ran my fingers over a dried rosemary stem and wondered how many things in this family had faded in the same way, from lack of care, not time. I heard the front door creak, and a few moments later, Mom stepped out. Her eyes were puffy, not from crying, necessarily, but from the kind of restlessness that follows a reality shift. She sat across from me without a word, wrapping her sweater tighter around her. For a while, we just sat there, listening to the birds, the distant sound of a dog barking down the street. Then finally she said, I didn't know you felt that way. Her voice was quiet, like the words were fighting their way out. I sipped my coffee. You didn't ask. She nodded slowly, staring at a crack in the porch wood. I guess I thought, you were fine. You never made a fuss. You just handled things. I did, because someone had to. The silence between us wasn't hostile, just honest. Then she looked at me, really looked. I'm sorry, Lena. I don't know if I fully believed her yet, but it was the first time I'd heard her say those words, to me in as long as I could remember. That had to mean something. Later that day, I packed my things. Grandpa hugged me tightly before I left, whispering in my ear, You did the right thing, sweetheart. I held on to those words like a lifeline. Talia didn't say goodbye, but I wasn't surprised. Her silence didn't cut me like it used to, because for once I wasn't standing in her shadow. I was standing in my own light. Over the next few weeks, things were different. Uncle Dean sent me a message on Facebook with a gif of someone raising a glass. Respect, it said. I rolled my eyes, but I smiled too. Mom started checking in, texts that weren't just about family logistics. She even asked how work was going, and once she called just to say goodnight. Small things, but I noticed. Talia and I haven't spoken since. I'm okay with that. The house is mine now. Legally, yes, but emotionally too. I visit Grandpa every weekend, and we sit on that back porch and talk about anything but the past. Because the past doesn't need to be relived. It just needs to be seen for what it was. If there's one thing I've learned from all of this, it's that silence is not the same as peace. And being the one who holds it all together doesn't mean you have to be invisible. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is stop asking to be seen and simply make yourself undeniable. I never wanted the house or the money or the recognition. I wanted to know that being kind, being consistent, being present mattered. And now I do. So to anyone who's ever felt like the background character in their own family, let me say this. You are not small. You are not forgettable. You are not just the one who cleans up the mess. You are the one who knows where everything goes, including your worth. And sometimes, all it takes is one moment of truth to change everything. If this story resonated with you, even just a little, leave a comment below. Tell me if you've ever felt like the one holding things together while everyone else took the spotlight. I read every message, and trust me, your story matters too. And if you know someone who needs to hear this, someone quiet, someone steady, someone who never asks for much, share this video with them. Remind them they're seen. Don't forget to like this video if it made you feel something. It really helps more people find these stories. And if you're new here, or you just haven't yet, hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell. I share true emotional stories like this every week. Stories about family, identity, healing, and learning to finally speak up. Because sometimes, the quiet ones are the ones who have the most powerful stories to tell. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.